Yes,
So
ma'am.
bossy.
So, do you want seating choice? No, no. We don't, she's still coming in that part. We don't have a minister, so.
Wow.
We're just starting out with a flag.
Okay, okay,
I don't think that was okay.
okay. The proverbial minute.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the volunteer of the month's not on the agenda. Oh, I got it. I got it.
Here, turn your mic off. Turn your mic off.
Can day we can get to you? Crazy. Yeah.
Oh, Mary Nancy's on.
What was that?
They can't talk yet.
What was that?
Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Nancy's on.
I muted this.
How do you know Nancy's on?
No, her name, she's in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll be on there.
Zoom.
It's Dan and somebody
Leslie Suva.
second down from the left.
Oh, I see what you're saying. And that's what we're hearing? Hey, I'll call the meeting to order, and we don't have a minister here tonight, so we're going to lead off with our council president leading us in the pledge.
Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like us to bow our heads in a moment of silence for 9/11. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is Beth Patrick will give us the volunteer of the month. Our own Bill Smith. Billy, better known as Billy. Are you on? I
Is
don't.
it on now? There we go. I can tell. It is with pleasure that the Greater Bandon Association presents the Volunteer of the Month Award to Bill Smith. Bill's journey as a volunteer has been nothing short of extraordinary. He was the driving force behind the Veterans Memorial at City Park, and he was really busy out there this weekend, talking to people during Cranberry Festival. A project that stands a testament as to his unwavering commitment to honor our veterans. Bill not only spearheaded the construction of this memorial, but continues to manage it with dedication, ensuring that it remains a place of respect and remembrance. For a remarkable 15 years, Bill has served as the co-chair of Flags for Veterans. This program proudly adorns our cemeteries with flags for Memorial Day, July 4th, Veterans Day, and many other occasions. Bill understands the importance of paying tribute to those who have served our nation, and his commitment to this cause is inspiring. Beyond his work with veterans, Bill is a valued member of the Bandon Historical Society Museum, where he generously volunteers his time and expertise. His involvement extends to assisting school groups during their visits and helping to educate our youth and other visitors about the rich history of our community. This comes naturally to Bill because he was a school teacher for many years here in Bandon, primarily teaching 5th grade. His impact on young lives extends beyond the classroom, as he also coached middle school and high school basketball teams. Bill, thanks so much for your unwavering dedication and countless hours of selfless service to the Bandon community. This award is a small token of our appreciation to all that you do. He does not want to get this award. He's very humble, this man. But may your passion for service inspire us. Thank you. And I give this award to Bill. He's receiving an engraved plaque from the Greater Bandon Association and a $30 gift certificate to Winter River Books. Well deserved. You're welcome. And I know Bill would like to say a word or two. Josh is going to take a picture real quick and then.
Oh, and so was, did Madeline get one?
Oh, yeah. Josh. Okay, thank you. And Bill would like to say a few words.
I would just like to say, I like to quote that Yankee ball player Lou Gehrig, who came down with Lou Gehrig's disease, but he said, his quote is, I am the luckiest man on the face of the earth, is the way he said that.
Right.
Now, I don't compare my thing with Lou's at all because his was very fatal for him, but I would like to say that I feel very, very fortunate to have been born and raised here in Bandon and got to come back here and work with all our kids and coach several teams and so forth. And I go out, and this is the honest to God truth, I tell the story a lot. I go out to the beach on these beautiful days, and I look out there and I do the Lou Gehrig thing. I say, God, I'm the luckiest man on the face of the earth, because Bandon is a wonderful place. And it's a wonderful place. Number one, we have the scenery and we have the location and everything. But we have all these people, volunteers that worked all these years to make Bandon continue to be a great place. And I'm so happy to say that we've had 8 grandkids here. Now we have 4 great grandkids and 1 more next month coming up, I think. And so far, we've all been able to stay here in Bandon, and because everybody loves us so much. But could you get the house prices down just a tad bit? Yeah. But again, I don't propose to stand up to a lot of. I went and reviewed online a lot of the people who have received this award, and yeah, I think about them and I think about what I've done, and I can't hold a grain of salt to them, but I'm very blessed to have received this and be recognized for that. And along with all the people that I've worked with who've volunteered, and there's 3 or 4 of them back there to start with. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Now, the next presentation of the VFW, I think they want to speak about the uniforms or.
Well, I'm Gary Sands, the captain of the Bandon Veterans Honor Guard, and this is Bill Henry, the commander for the American Legion, and this is Preston Waite, the quartermaster for the VFW. And we would like to thank each and every person on the council and the selection committee that we were able to get a grant to buy new uniforms. We'd been here before and we had black shirts, long sleeve. Well, this summer proved that we definitely needed to have short sleeves.
Right.
So we thank you from the bottom of our heart, and we hope to continue to be a big supporter of Bandon itself. So we thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
The next presentation we have is Greg Drobot from the Face Rock Creamery.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, staff. It's been a while since I've seen most of you, probably 4 or 5 years since I've been up here. I have 2 little girls now, so time goes by very quick. So I had 2 main goals to speak with you tonight. I want to give kind of a state of the creamery since it's been a while since I've been up here. And then also I have a favor on an easement agreement that we signed back about 10 years ago with a propose for a modification of a couple sentences in that. So first of all, I'll start with Face Rock Creamery. Obviously, Face Rock most likely would not be around without the initial help from from the city back in 2012 or earlier. And it's I'm very proud of how myself and other founders and employees have grown Face Rock. Despite what rumors may be out there, the business is not for sale. So I do want to address that. And 2023 marks our 10th year in business. This past year, it was very exciting because we now have about 40 employees, and that is a direct contribution of over $1 million a year in payroll into the Bandon area. So for a business that started from nothing back in 2012, 2013, that's pretty exciting to share with everybody. We also in 2022 made 770,000 pounds of cheese.
Wow.
That's the most we've ever made. When we started in 2013, we made 130,000 pounds. So pretty nice growth. I can't believe we made that much cheese looking back at it. But in addition, we won a bunch of awards this year. I think that was presented a few months ago. The American Cheese Society is kind of like the Westminster Dog Show for cheese, best of show. So we won more awards, and every year we've entered in 10 years, we've always won something. So while awards don't necessarily mean you're doing well in a business, at least it means you're continuing to make really good cheese and make a really quality product. So we're proud of that as well. And still, every pound of cheese with the Face Rock name is made right here in Bandon. We don't produce it anywhere else. So again, we're really proud of that. I kind of wanted to segue also into the city shops property. I think that was the next, or probably the last time I presented and spoke with all of you. We still fully intend to develop that into the warehouse and production facility that we spoke about. Obviously, over the last 3 years, there's been a lot that's happened in the economy, whether it's COVID, inflation, interest rates, that have caused us as a company to kind of put that on the back burner a bit. But we still are using the old shops as a really crucial part of our business. We put in quite a bit of money upgrading it. Our accounting department is there. We smoke our cheese there. Our e-commerce is fulfilled out of there. We age and store our cheese as well as other dry goods. So it's very valuable to us as is, even without going to the next step with development. So I wanted you to know that as well. I guess I'll kind of ask about the last part and then open it up for questions if there's any specific questions. As anybody who has a business or reads the newspaper obviously sees that financing is becoming more and more complicated and expensive to get. Just in the last 18 months, interest rates have tripled for our business and probably a lot of other businesses. So one of the ways that I'm trying to continue to support Face Rock is to do a sale leaseback. And for those who are not aware of that, essentially, I own the building and the real estate myself individually. The creamery, the operating business operates completely independent of that. So if I can't get financing to help with my business, I can do a sale leaseback, which basically means I sign a very long-term lease. I give a personal guarantee. We're not going anywhere, but now somebody else owns the building. So I basically pay rent, just like a lot of other businesses that don't own their property. So I am fully invested, tied to the mast, so to speak. So I have no intent or intention of going anywhere else. I'm completely involved in Face Rock and will be for a long time. Again, 10 years in, it's going to be around for quite a bit longer. So to that end, one of the individuals who is looking at purchasing the building and becoming our landlord would like to see some language changed in the easement agreement, which primarily deals with the use of the bathroom and the parking. But there is a paragraph at the end that I think, in my opinion, it was a reasonable request because I don't think it changes the intent, especially with me still being involved in the creamery still in operation as we plan. So that would be my ask of council to kind of review and see if that would be acceptable. I guess I'll open it up to any questions if that's
I guess I have a question. Now you also have the warehouse for sale. Now, is that also a lease? You did have it for 975,000. Now you've lowered it to 855,000. Is that also a lease or is that a purchase?
It has not sold. I'm not looking at that to be a lease,
But
but
it's still listed, but is it listed as a sale or a lease?
it's sale lease back. So it would be the same situation as what I'm looking at with the creamery.
Okay.
So obviously the intent of that is to allow me to continue to operate and essentially use some of the equity in the building or land to reinvest in the business.
Because in the beginning, when we were first talking about it, and that was when Fred Carlton was still alive, we talked about that in the agreement, once you purchased it, that the building would be torn down. And I believe the date that we had set was December of 2022. But apparently that never made it into an agreement, because what the agreement basically says is that you had 30 months from the time you signed it, which was in June of, I believe, 2020, that within 30 months that the building would be upgraded at least. And it's been 39 months. And of course, that hasn't happened either. So
We have, I guess it depends which of the structures you're talking
well,
about.
now I'm talking about the city shop.
Well,
That was our concern, is that it's such an eyesore. And we thought that by selling it to you and that you utilizing the ground, basically, that you would build a decent building there and that we would get rid of the eyesore. And then that was really our intent, but that apparently didn't happen. So
it still is my intent. It's almost impossible right now to get financing for something like that. So, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the force majeure term. I've been using it. People have used it against me. I mean, a lot happened in the last 3 years in business that has made it, it doesn't necessarily change the path, but it changes the timing of things, because you have to, obviously you got to take care of the business and make sure that it can survive, and then that we can go to the next part. So as with the items that I mentioned, I'm pretty happy with the business as it is running. But sometimes you got to circle the wagons and make sure that you're investing in the appropriate things first. But that, Madam Mayor, that still is our intent to do that.
I think I don't know how if I can speak for the rest of the council, but I do think that we need to talk this over with our attorney.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping that we can have it on an executive session. We're having a special workshop on the September 25th. And I think that would be a good time for us to discuss it with our attorney, because we have questions and.
I'd like to spend some
Sure.
more time with it as well.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Right,
Absolutely.
okay. So I think that's where we stand now, Greg, is that this is a pretty big decision, because it's basically relinquishing some of the control that we felt was so important to put on the agreement. So.
Understood, and obviously review and talk to your counsel. I also do want to let you know that I am not going anywhere, and I will be signing a personal guarantee on the lease. So I know we all were on the same page on why it was created in the beginning, to avoid previous things that have happened with that property. I don't want that any more than you do, and I'm going to continue to be involved. So I think we also know what we don't want there. And as some of those uses are written in there, I think from a lender standpoint, if I get hit by a bus and they need to find another tenant, they want to make sure that they can have the highest and best use within the terms of, or within land use and within what's allowed. And they're just kind of looking at it from that side.
Well, and I think as far as the council's concerned, having that clause in there that something would have to come before the council, it doesn't mean that we would turn it down. It just means that the council and the community would then know what either one of those buildings might be used for. And it just, I don't know, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I can't speak for the council, but we will be talking with our attorney about it. So anyway, we appreciate your update.
Yeah, and I appreciate the consideration. And again, I want to thank all of you for the help that you've given the Creamery for various steps throughout our 10 years. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's great.
Next, we have Liza Ely with the gorse eradication program. Liza and her helper, I don't.
We have a PowerPoint.
Yeah, yeah.
Good luck.
Oh, did that work?
Is it working?
Oh, okay, good. It just needed to wake up. Yeah, good evening, council. My name is Carrie Porosco, and I'm with the Oregon Department of Agriculture. I am with their noxious weed program, and my region of the state that I serve is Southwest Oregon. So I work here on the coast with Coos and Curry counties, and then inland with Douglas, Jackson, and Josephine counties. Liza invited me to come. I'm an active member of the Gorse Action Group. And I wanted to share a little bit about my agency's history with gorse on this part of the coast. Oh, not sure what happened there. The presentation disappeared.
We often have technical issues. Don't worry about it.
Quick to resolve. And I guess I should say, when I come to the coast, I live inland in Grants Pass, and I come here a lot for work, obviously, and I always go to the Bandon Creamery. It's my favorite. So with the Oregon Department of Agriculture, we have a pretty good history with gorse on the South Coast. It is a noxious weed. So at the state, we have maintained a list of priority weeds. This is a B-rated weed gorse. We have A and B. A are the highest priority from a statewide standard because we don't have many of them throughout the state. Like we'll have 1 or 2 populations, for instance. So gorse naturally isn't in that category. We wish it was, and that's our goal, is to really reduce it down here with the Gorse Action Group, but it's a B-rated weed. Over the decades, Oregon Department of Agriculture, before my time, did quite a bit of work on gorse. My understanding is our whole team with the noxious weed program would come from all over the state and focus on controlling gorse, either using herbicide spraying or using biological control. So that's where we use the insects to help us with control, either reducing seed. So we've released a seed head agent over the years. A spider mite was released in the 90s. I still see the webbing out there. I'm sure you guys do too. And our latest agent was released 2 years ago. A lot of work, of course, before that went into it, but it was released. It's a thrip. It's a little tiny insect that sucks the sap out of the plant, out of the stem material and modified leaves. So that latest agent that was released is in the monitoring phase. And it's been released mostly around Bandon, a few other populations down in Curry. So this is kind of the epicenter for those biocontrol releases. Oregon Department of Agriculture, our noxious weed program has a granting program each year. And Curry County Soil and Water Conservation District has received grants for control of gorse down in Curry County. The grants are focused on those incipient or outlier populations, not the epicenter, but the outlier populations. And then right here in Coos County, the Coquille and Coos Watershed associations have also received funding from our Oregon State Weed Board grant funding program. And they still receive that funding this last cycle, and they'll probably apply again for next season. And again, that's focusing on the outlier populations, not the epicenter. Of course, about 10 years ago, the Oregon Regional Solutions Process, Oregon Department of Agriculture was one of the active members in that process with gorse. And I continue to be a lead in the Gorse Action Group partnership as we move forward into the future. A little bit about the Gorse Action Group in general. I've been doing invasive weed work for 25 years in 2 states, and the Gorse Action Group is sincerely the most successful group I've seen in that time. Many unique features about it, lots of cooperation, but one of the unique features is what you allowed to happen is hiring a vegetation management coordinator that truly is unique, a coordinator that is focused on one species like gorse I just haven't seen it. Usually, as you're aware, code compliance officers are hired to handle all the ordinance violations and things like that, and everything's lumped into one pot. But it's unique to set out gorse, and I think it's a smart thing to do because, as we all know, when it's done locally by locals, you have the most success instead of someone coming in from the outside. Success at Coquille Point. Every time I come over and I walk the beach there, I look above, drive along Beach Loop Drive. It just truly makes my jaw drop. What they said we couldn't do 10, or probably longer than that, Mayor, what couldn't be done has been done at Coquille Point, a huge stretch of the coast right there. It's hard to find a gorse anymore. It just blows my mind. And again, I've been doing this 25 years. I worked on gorse in California. It just hasn't been done anywhere else. And that gives me hope. It gives the Gorse Action Group hope. And that yes, we can continue going in an organized fashion, continuing. The Gorse District Plan is one of a kind. Again, it's a thoughtful way of moving forward. We're in an epicenter of where a weed has been here for so long. So, let's see. And again, the Gorse Action Group, it's happened through cooperation and partnerships. Over 30 partners. Keep going. I don't think anyone thought we would last 10 years. So we started with a small budget, small little grants, and it grew to modest grants. And now we're at the cusp of getting some really hefty dollars. There's a lot of federal infrastructure money coming down to our federal partners, NRCS included, and they've presented an opportunity for the Gorse Action Group to really ramp this up to a bigger scale, both in Coos and Curry counties. So that's kind of a future direction for our group. And again, I can't, everything that's done, not just here in Bandon, Coos County in general, but down in Curry County, hundreds, if not thousands of acres of gorse have been removed in the last 10 years. It just blows my mind. It's unbelievable to me each time I work on the coast. The gorse ordinance, game changer. And that was you guys modifying that so we could get to where we are in the city of Bandon. Another game changer, funding from the city of Bandon. It's a modest amount, but it has done such a world of good in terms of getting this ordinance, the district plan going over the last several years. Oh, lost her again. And I think Liza and I love using the term, the Gorse Action Group, we get her done. We really, less talk, more action. We get it done. And Liza's a big driving force, as you would know. And the scale of gorse control, again, no one's in the regional solutions process when we were dreaming big of what we could do with gorse. Most people said it just can't be done. And we said, well, look at us. And now 10 years later, we're going strong. Let's see. And again, the city of Bandon is a member of the Gorse Action Group. You guys are highly involved helping us drive this forward. I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Liza. She's going to get more into the nitty gritty of our district plan and some other aspects of equipment and how we do what we do.
See if I can blow up your whole.
Right. So I'm Liza Ailey. I work with Windward Gardens. That's my company that does logistics and has been in the landscaping and vegetation management for about 40 years now. I serve as a volunteer with GAG. I am not paid. I did not get paid to do the district plan for the city of Bandon, and I continue to work effortlessly with the people that you guys give me, whether it's the city manager or public works or whoever. It's a joy to continue my relationship with them. I was a municipal landscaper. It's really been pleasurable to continue that in a way that I think is maybe going to leave a legacy coming up here, it looks like. So one of the things about the district plan and the writing of it is my experience with fire, which has become now something everybody has experience with. And this was years and years ago when I first started looking at what the gorse situation was in Bandon and started researching with my fire science guys, where does gorse grow? Where would fires start? How do we get in and out if there was a gorse fire? Studying the old fires to see where the wind patterns and so forth took us. The other piece of that is erosion. Obviously, in my line of work, I ran into a lot of places where that was my job, so felt like I was pretty comfortable in that zone. And the controversy around herbicides, I'd always been known as the organic gardener, and here I was knee deep in herbicides. It's part and parcel, comes with it. And then I did a lot of work for the tribe as well. So all of these things factored into the work that I was doing, and wanted to be sensitive in all three of those areas. And then I connected with these people through the GAG from the very beginning of it, and realized that in all the work that I had done, I was working on a level with people who understood the work that we were wanted to do. And adding 35 agencies to my own personal knowledge locally was a game changer in terms of what we were capable of doing. So we're now pulling in people with geology backgrounds, people with experience in coastal management zones, people who had worked in herbicides intensively, people who had been in the tribal, worked with tribes and on actual cultural sites with the archaeology. Just really a deep depth there that we were able to go. And working at the federal, state, and municipal levels brought me one step up from the municipal level that I had been working at, just thinking in a bigger picture. And then the biggest thing that one of the logistics things that I bring to the table was the knowledge of the contracting and the actual work that had to happen. And all those people with all those college degrees, it doesn't matter if the boots on the ground don't know what they're doing and don't know how to do it correctly. So they began to evolve a education program for contractors. That's what I've been working on the last 10 years, is educating contractors, getting ready for the district plan to roll out. So there's been a lot going on in the backdrop while I was still running by the Sea Gardens to evolve to the place that we are today. But we asked a lot of hard questions to get where we are right now. So 2016 and 2017, many of you will be familiar with the project that we did at Coquille Point. We used the Shutter Creek Correctional Facility inmates with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We had some funding from WRCA, and we picked that site because it was the worst case scenario of anything that we would run into in terms of instability, erosion, cultural sites, herbicides, partners, everything. It was a hot mess is what it was. And a federal partner makes it the hottest mess possible because they have the highest guidelines and restrictions, and they are going to be the most conservative person you're going to work with. We sailed right through that. We knew exactly what we were doing. We got it done. They did the follow-up, and it's been very successful. So we were ready, and it was ready, and we got people in line to do that. And it was literally the first attempt at doing that had ever been coordinated. And we found that we loved working together, all of us that did that, and that the success was really the planet healing itself from gorse, going pretty well, and a few dollars thrown at it, but the logistics were manageable. And so it gave us a lot of strength, which made us be able to go to the next level with the contractor training, the funding, the partnerships, working on equipment cleaning and safety, apprentice programs to get more herbicide applicators in the area. A lot happened in that from 2016, 2017, motivated a lot of people to try a lot harder to get where we were going. So we have contractors list, we vet our contractors, we look at their equipment, we inspect sites. We look before, we look after to see how things are doing. We're doing follow-up to check and make sure that stuff is being done. All things that were done at Coquille Point all worked. All of them weren't that hard, and all of them created a successful profile for what we're going to do in the future. The work at the ordinance and that level, Jim Seeley is intimately involved in that, pushing that through, working with the city managers that we had. Dan has taken that as gospel and worked with it in a way that has really been able to put boots on the ground all the way across the board. And he's been really a valuable partner in that. He walked right in the middle of it with a code enforcement officer. Richard's here. He's a really big part of that. I am sorry to say that our vegetation management coordinator has very bad COVID, like 2 weeks of very bad COVID, still hasn't left the house, not testing positive, very sick. Otherwise, he would be here tonight. We'd give him a section of this. But that position was filled by Bear Slothauer as a volunteer. And that's 3 years of his life getting us going with his geotech background. He had worked in restoration and revegetation and mining operations. He was a big cheese in his world, and he came and gave us, you know, years of his life. And then during that time, we had Jason shadow Bear to see what Bear was doing and what needed to be improved and all that, and found out that Jason had incredible skills in computers and mapping and all sorts of things that you wouldn't just get off the street in a normal situation. Very high level skills that really started to work with databases and things that Bear was just not in a position to take on that level of depth. And we were moving through the districts at this point, and it was now layering on. District 1 was being done, District 2 was being done. Now we're into District 3. We're midway in this thing. It's time for this vegetation management coordinator to become a fixed object. And that's what Jason was able to do. He worked for almost 2 years as a volunteer before he stepped in as a paid position. He did come with his own funding, which is fairly rare. If you can't get a volunteer like me, get a guy that pays for his own job. And that's through the Office of the State Fire Marshal. And so he's got a fire fuels reduction grant. That's what pays for his salary. And they looked at this and said, there is no question that you need this person. This is a big job for here. So they did not have any problem. They gave him the money. That funds him for 3 years. And so we use every bit of his skills every day in what we're doing. Some things happened when we started this thing. COVID-19 was one of them. We were going to have outreach and education. That couldn't happen in a big way, but we changed our format and we went into people's homes and we dealt with people one-on-one, and we continued. We never quit. We just didn't have the public meetings that we had, but we still got the education out. We also put out a whole lot of pamphlet type literature and modified a website to make it more complex, added some links into the city abandoned stuff, and got it rolling. Whether you didn't have skills on the computer or you did, you could get it information if you needed it. And we visited a lot of people in each of the districts, and the agencies were already on board because they're part of the GAG partnership. Then what started happening when we started actually mowing gorse and doing the work was voluntary compliance ramped up. And Richard can attest to this. His job became, we thought he was going to be really, really important piece of this. We were going to be leaning people and everything. No, that didn't happen. What happened is his great demeanor and Jason's thoroughness and Bear's demeanor and all of this fell into place in such a way that when we showed up, people said, yeah, how do I do this? Not, I don't want to do this. So that was really an interesting piece that sort of surprised all of us. I think we weren't really ready for that. We were ready to fight it out, and it didn't happen. So then there's a few bureaucratic setbacks that you maybe can help us with. We're still fighting. We're not going to give up. We're moving along. The Coast Guard in District 1. That's a federal agency. It's a moving target. They change people every 20 minutes there that are in charge of this piece of property. And they hand it off on a regular basis. We have the port helping us. We've had the tribes helped us. Other people have helped us. We're doing all that we can to get through that, but that's going to take a while. And I think what's going to happen is the port's going to end up doing that, is what's going to end up happening. We just have to figure out how. So Pacific View was a sticky wicket because it was tribal land, but had a management company, and we got them finally sorted out. And Dan was really instrumental in that, and several other people all jumped on board, and we just figured it out. There really wasn't a path forward, but we just figured it out. And now it's a year behind, but it's in the herbicide portion of its, the removal, which is the difficult part, was done. The herbicides are being done now. We also gathered many of the homeowners above that in that area at the same time. And now we're working on the deeds research issues. So Jason's skill sets have brought to light many deeds in the area that are questionable. Either the agency doesn't actually think it owns it, or the person can't be found, or whatever. And you can't remove gorse on a piece of property if you don't have the owner in hand. So Jason very thoroughly has gone through and identified where the problems are and so forth, and he's digging deep. And this guy goes down these rabbit holes and comes out with answers every time, but he's working on all of these things. And then we had a new issue that came up, which is the Department of Land Conservation Development and Ocean Shores popped up out of nowhere, even though they were part of the GAG group all along. And we'll actually show you what the whole conversation was. There was a patch of about 20 by 20 gorse that was on a foredune that we had to get a permit for, that just opened this whole can of worms. And luckily Dan and Jason and Dana have worked diligently on that and found a permitting path, a way through this thing. Ocean Shores and Division of Land Conservation Development got a heck of an education. For one thing, they had no idea that we knew more than they did, is exactly what I think happened. And that we were much further along down the road and have much more scientific information and much more experience than they did. So hopefully we did some educating there, and now we've got more hands together working on it. Your city staff was amazing, completely resilient, completely responsive. That was great. It had to happen right away because we were in the middle of something. So there are very many heavy lifters, and I've just gone through a few of them. Jason is out in front. He's the guy that writes the letters. He gets contact from people. And then he begins to work on contracts and contractors that go with those projects. He looks at every property differently, slope, terrain, personalities, everything. He's looking at the whole picture of who needs to be working with who. Richard gets involved if there's an issue, and he does a great job. He's not confrontational at all, but he's mostly getting people to just turn around. And I'd love to say that we were leaning everybody for $750 a day because of income would be great. But honestly, we're not making any money, are we, Richard? Dang it, that's not working. We're getting compliance, not liens. So. And then Dan's been great. He's reorganized the city crews, gotten them to work. Work orders are seamless. Anything that's on your property gets managed. There's no person that can say, I'm not doing my gorse until the city does theirs, because the city is doing theirs. So each time we get to a district, that's getting done seamlessly. And then all these partners in the 35 agencies, we're pulling from their expertise. Carrie at the Department of Ag, Oregon State, we've actually gone all the way to the pesticide division to discuss how the pesticide applicators need to be licensed. We're making changes up at the very top of that. Oregon State Parks has a ton of experience in exactly these types of areas. They have a revegetation expert, Celeste, that has been wonderful. We're working on a seed mixture. She and I and several other people are working on a seed mixture for revegetation. U.S. Fish and Wildlife and BLM, two federal agencies that have just jumped over giant hurdles and done massive projects in the area. And their Curry Soil and Water Conservation District has some huge rock stars working down in Curry County. And we're sharing a lot of resources and contractors between us so that we don't have to mobilize too far. Everybody's on the same page. And then Coos and Coquille Watersheds, they're nonprofits, but they're eligible for types of funding that other agencies aren't, including the municipality. And then OSU is here with their expertise from the scientific side and their biological agents being checked here. And even people like the Gwinnips, who allowed us to apply every toxic chemical known to mankind on their project down there so that we could illustrate what did and didn't work with herbicides. All the landowners have just been amazing. So I just really can't say enough about how this really reaffirms in my world, this community. So two pieces of equipment that we use is the excavator on the left and the skid steer on the right. The cleaning, mobilization, the risk of erosion, these are all topics that are factored into our education process. It also determines which piece of equipment gets used where. I want you to just take a second and look at that yellow piece of machinery and how much dirt and stuff is on that, okay? Every time that machine moves, that's how we moved gorse, from here to everybody else. So Bandon is ground zero. And we took it from here and we took it everywhere. That's exactly what we did. It's our responsibility in a containment zone to keep it here. And so teaching people about that and equipment not moving, but every bicycle, every horse at Bullard State Beach, every dog that goes through here with fur on him, every pair of sneakers, every RV, every piece of mud that flips up under a worker's truck, all of those are part of the problem leaving here. So if we don't get it under control here, the state can't get it under control anywhere. So this is really clear that we are the major vector for gorse, which is why we really have attention on us, and we get points, lots of points for what we're doing here. It's pretty aggressive. Oh, now I lost us again. Oh. Okay, am I in control again, or are you, Dana? I don't think so, not yet. Wake up. There you go.
No,
That's
bad.
wrong way.
Wrong way.
One more, okay. So the skid steer is used, the piece of equipment that was on the right side, that's used in flat terrain. And these pictures were taken just recently. This, ladies and gentlemen, is your donut hole. Okay, that was 100% monoculture.
Yeah.
There's several hundred acres of freshly mowed gorse out there, including handwork under the trees. That's impressive. That's in District 7. Okay, this is voluntary compliance on steroids right here. These are people doing it because they see it coming and they're ahead of the curve. So this will be ready for herbicide in just a few months. There's city right-of-ways that run through the middle of this that need to be vacated, addressed, so forth. Your new city manager, Dan, Public Works, everybody needs to talk about this. How do we not leave those islands in the middle of that? Because that will cause a new crop. And you can see, for example, in that upper right slide, that's the size that the gorse was on that right of way. It was treated not too long ago, but it's back. This is about 4 to 5 years of growth on there. And you can see the mowed area and a utility box right there. So we've got utilities all mixed into that. So the handwork underneath there, the tree canopy is important. That slows things down quite a bit. That all that product is removed from there and taken to another location on the site and ground on that site. You can see in the upper left-hand corner there, there's a little bit of a brown pile there. That's an old gorse pluck site where people used to pile it. These new masticators eliminate that from happening. There's no fire risk, there's no pile. What there is 1 to 3 feet of ground up gorse. That's perfect erosion control, perfect suffocation for the seed bed down below, perfect for revegetation, perfect for habitat, perfect on every level, nitrogen fixing, mulched material. Even ready for a guy to walk over it with an herbicide or drive over it with a pickup truck with herbicides. Done. So the mastication is a huge piece of this. And these guys are amazing. Our new excavators that we have, these new companies that have come in and the old companies that have adopted the new machinery, they are doing a great job and they're really responsible, really receptive. They're listening to the people. They've had training in contracting law. They're ethical. So we've been really following these guys closely. This happens to be the work of the pictures are from a company called Uppercut. Used to be Jensen's. They're the person that does your line work for the city of Bandon for the utilities. On steep terrain, this is a great example of another new one, and Dan was instrumental in this. This is Walter Urbach's property. Many of you will remember him from back in the day. So Walter had phase 4 of Ocean Terrace that could not move any further. Dana's been working on planning issues with that, and he had gorse that he couldn't tackle because he's got Johnson Creek down below and no way to access that. So we partnered the city of Bandon for access, Best Western, about 6 or 8 property owners got involved. Other people jumped on just this week and want to get into part of this. And we worked from the top down and the bottom up. And you can see in the middle of those 3 pictures, that's all one bank. The middle of those 3 pictures, see the little ridge of vegetation? That is 200 man hours of hand cutting where the machine couldn't reach. So we reached down 30 feet from the top, 30 feet up from the bottom. The creek runs right against the toe of the hill where the creek was, we couldn't go. So we just hand cut it and piled it, and then the machine will come back and grind it in that location. This is really similar to what you would see in a lot of steep areas. But behind that is all of the erosion material that we just saw in the other pictures is still on the bank there. All the trees are still there and the gorse roots are still on the hillside. They're still holding the hillside. So there really is very little erosion concern here. Then it'll take about 3 years of herbicides for that gorse root mass to break down. As it breaks down, new vegetation is coming on. That's exactly what happened at Coquille Point. So we never are without vegetation on there. Perennial ryegrass, other seed mixtures come in. So it comes, and the gorse itself has seeds on there. So that's where our herbicides step in. So you can see that we have, this is an inland version of that, but it's the same basic concept as what we used. This is an example of a landowner cooperation. This is what, and many of you know, the old Steve Miller house down at the Tishatang access down at the beach where they used to have the sandcastle contests. And that house could have, I don't know how much money it cost, but a lot. Very nice house. built by a premier contractor. It could have burnt down because somebody anywhere, either coming up from the beach or somebody from up above with a structure fire, it would have burnt down, and there's no way Lanny would have driven his crew down their road and fought that fire. They just let it burn to the ground because of the access issues. And this guy on the right-hand side, Mr. Nichols, he had a vacation rental there, and he was so worried about erosion that he let the gorse, I wish I had a picture of this, the gorse grow right up under that deck. The gorse was touching the deck underneath there with pampas grass in the middle of it, which is also a flame, invasive weed species. So he didn't want to mow his gorse, so Lanny couldn't drive by it if it caught on fire, and then Mr. Gates's property would have burnt down. Mr. Gates was great. He got busy on his own and cut everything on his property. The house and the driveway take up about 90% of his property. Everything else was somebody else's. And he organized the whole neighborhood. And Jason and I went to about a 4-hour meeting there with all the neighbors, and we got everybody organized, and everybody used the same contractor. Everybody used the same technique. And we had hand cutting crews from above throwing it down to the other ones. Everybody understood about erosion. We got it all done, the whole thing done. So this is all the way from Tishatang down past the colony, got done in one chunk with cooperation between the landowners. Okay. And that saved not only his piece of property, but Dr. Mehring and everybody else that was up on that bluff was benefiting from that. And the cost savings were astronomical because of the fact that they cooperated with each other. You could not get to all of the properties that you're looking at to the right side of the first slide. You could not get to any of those without permission from Mr. Gates for the equipment to get in there. So it worked two ways. And the crews up above couldn't get anything through all those houses that are all next to each other. So everybody benefited from that. And the equipment came in and out that Tishatang access road the city owns right there. And that's an archaeological site, just to say, add one more thing. That's a disturbed archaeological site right there. So just saying, we had a lot going on here, did it, got it done, no problem. So this is what that hillside looked like up close. There was an old kind of a cat road there, and the people up above threw their gorse down. You can see it piled there on the ridge line, and then the grinder came back and mowed all of that. Oddly enough, this whole Ocean Shores Department of State Lands, hullabaloo that we had, that little patch of gorse right there is the reason why. It's on the other side of Mr. Gates's driveway, and it's in the foredune, and it's isolated patch. But from the gorse management standpoint, there's the trail to the beach, and every person with every dog and every set of boots and every fat tire bicycle walks right by that thing. But in order for us to walk 20 feet down there and mow that thing, we needed a special permit to do that. So that's where this all went, and this is how this all got started with them. I think now they understand that we weren't out to do anything. The gorse, actually, I think the pile of gorse is still there. It's still attached. It hasn't been mowed, but we have a month's worth of paperwork to mow that little patch of gorse right there. That's what we're saying. This is where the cooperation of GAG really works. So I think Dan waded through that. Dana waded through that. You guys wading through that, right? Yeah. It's a wading. Yes, we're waiting for that. Yes. Yes. They informed us that we had tides here, like we didn't know that. And we have wind here, like we didn't know that. So anyway, we think that maybe they know now that we do know what we're doing. We met for them. We stood in front of that patch of gorse for 3 hours and argued with Ocean Shores. So it was a good, productive meeting. I think when it was all done, he did at least acknowledge that we had some of the best and brightest people there from Fish and Wildlife and everybody else. There were some real big honchos at that meeting. And anyway, we got through it, and sometimes that happens, and it's unfortunate, but hopefully the administration doesn't eat up our every single dime that we have.
Right.
So this is one of the things that Jason's done that's amazing. So we're now working south from there to Windermere, down to Windermere, and this is all part of that same access issues that we have all the way along the way. And Jason's engineered this to where we've got a contractor picked out and an agreement. They were very reticent to help and be part of the whole process. That's a lot of gorse you're looking at right there. Difficult to get to. It has to go through other people's property. It's a big bill for that, but we have a contractor who's willing to do the good guy job, and we've got, you know, the people, everybody letting them to get the equipment in there. We've got other people partnering in the area, so there's not a lot of mobilization costs and things like that that go with it. And we've got it pretty much managed, how it's gonna occur at this time. What I would like you to look at is all the willows and other vegetation that's in the area. This is true of everywhere where we're working in gorse. What we're realizing now is how much other vegetation we have in Bandon and how gorse always gets the limelight. But honestly, there are little patches everywhere that make a lot of gorse in Bandon, but there's a lot of really good vegetation nearby that's going to stop erosion, going to seed itself in and going to spread. And that's exactly what happened at Coquille Point. So here's where you're going to keep your ears to the wheel here on the what GAG is doing. This is what we're calling Sunset Cove, and we pulled this out of District 3 on purpose. This will take us a year or two to wade through. This is 40 landowners. And the whole toe of the slope is not owned by the people whom the assessor thinks it's owned by. So the assessor doesn't know, the people who supposedly own it don't know, and nobody really knows who owns the toe of the slope. We can't do anything above until we figure out who owns the bottom of the slope. And Jason, again, amazing how he finds this stuff. So Fish and Wildlife can't change their footprint at Coquille Point, although it says technically that USA owns a big parcel down there. The 25 acres that I did at Coquille Point shows on the assessor's map as part of this parcel, but nobody can really attest to the fact that it's owned by anybody. And then the county owns a bunch of land down there that the county doesn't want or need. And guess who comes to talk to me about that? The forester. And he's like, where are the trees? It's like, there are no trees, you're standing on the beach. So he's out of his depth. He wants to get rid of that. John Sweet's on the same page. He's like, we don't need that land down there. So they would like to give it to Oregon State Parks, who owns the whole south end of that thing. Only one of their parcels is also in question, that they don't know that they own that. So, but it says that Oregon State Parks owns that. So, or Oregon State owns that. So when we get that sorted out, those are the big banners that you see down at the beach. When we get all that acreage sorted out, which is about 25 or 30 acres sorted out, we have all the 40 landowners up above who need the down below part to be organized when they go back and forth. Honestly, although this looks like an incredibly overwhelming project to do, the reality is it's 25% gorse and 75% strong vegetation on stable ground. There's a few places that are a little bit scary, you know, in terms of erosion, but not very many. And the people who have the most erosion are the state parks people who have tons of experience in this. So there's no problems we see. It's just going to take a while, and we're going to need permits and lots of administration time for this to happen. So we hope that the new city manager, I hope Dan will, you know, say what his winning combination was to get us through this. I hope Dana doesn't have anything else to do. And I hope Jason's hair is going to go gray, but we are going to get it done somehow. And we think this section part of District 3 will actually be done at the same time District 4 is done. So we're about a year later. And that's exactly with the Coast Guard. We think we're going to be about a year behind on that section. Those are the two most difficult sites that we have at this point. So this is basically what I just said, you know, the confusing ownership. Coos County has agreed they're willing to deed this over. We have 40 private landowners. This year in the classes that I teach, we're focusing intensely on the slope and erosion issues and what they might encounter using the Sunset Cove as a model for an 8-hour, all day long, intensive look at what would happen if we did this. So we're going to go through it with all of the contractors and vet all of them, see what their input and their ideas are, and also give them an idea that this is coming up. Some of the things that we're looking at, Carrie's been talking to some people about drone applications of herbicides, so it would be done from the air. So that's an interesting concept. We haven't gotten there yet. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife doesn't allow drones on their property, so we did not use that previously, but if we can use those on other parcels, we may just spray at some of the gorse in place in some of the worst areas. Hand masticating is partly what I did with the inmates, which is just basically chopping it up and leaving it in place like a machine would, with using no machinery whatsoever. We're looking at beach access points, grinders, the cultural sites. Obviously, the tribe has a new THPO. They will be looking intensely before we start anything at what we can and can't do out there. In general, we're not allowed to do any digging whatsoever. So revegetation will come in the form of seed only. And that's one of the things that the Ocean Shores people need to understand is that the tribe, their wishes trump everything. And then obviously the Ocean Shores DLCD permits and the Oregon State Parks, because they are a major partner in this and they are all on board. They've had sent people down and been super cooperative. So again, 25 to 30%, we have a inventory of the native species that are there. Darcy's here. She should be impressed. You could take cuttings down there. That place is filled with diversity. So it's very exciting to see all the different species that are already there. So here's the good news. Jason comes with 3 years funding from the state fire marshal. So he's good here and he's solid and he wants to stay and he's good at it. The next several districts are already voluntary complying. So when we're already in District 3, 4 through 7 are a piece of cake. Don't you think? We're doing pretty good, don't you think? Yeah, I think it's gonna go pretty well. We have a ton, I'd say almost 30 to 40% probably already pre-complying easily. So we haven't even gotten to them yet. They haven't even gotten a letter saying we're coming and they're doing it. So that's great. We also have some huge projects going that are bringing some very big eyes on the work that we're doing up Elk River. And which is, you know, if anybody's familiar with the Grassy Knob Wilderness, Laurel Lake has some very sensitive areas with some endangered species and so forth on big land water mass there that they're dealing with. Very sensitive Fore Dune area. That area is being worked on. We've done some huge projects with rappelling crews down in Brookings at Harris Beach State Park. ODOT is in compliance with us all the way from stem to stern on everything that they've got. They're working every angle. So they're great. And then one of the things that's happening, as Carrie said, is there's big money coming down for fire and fuels reduction. And that's a place where we're going to lean on you guys a little bit with fire management, the rural fire department, CFPA, other partners. We need some backing from the council saying this is urgent. We've gone a long ways. We need letters saying this is worth doing, and we've already got a plan and we're already in the middle of it. That gets you more money. Everybody knows that, right? When you write a grant, you're already 50% into the project. You can continue to get funding. So that's really what we think is an excellent prognosis for us. You'll see District 4, it's a no-brainer, but that's an area where our schools and our parks and so forth would be. So again, a reason to protect that from fire is that we have significant city infrastructure in that area. So once we get that done, we'll breathe a sigh of relief because then we'll have the basics covered in terms of our port and our most valuable homes on the bluff that are most susceptible to that, and then areas where structure fires could be catastrophic. And we'll be working then on the other zones that are more modest urban setting, but less of a wildland fire risk in those areas. So we feel pretty good about that. Jason is in the planning offices on Wednesdays and Thursdays. These are his phone number. He's available at Gorsuch City Abandoned. I hope all of you, I know Peter, you've been in there and met Jason. I hope you'll take a moment and meet with him as soon as he's well and not wearing a mask and not testing positive. Take some time. He's a really very bright young man and very dedicated. Our next ORS Action Group meeting is September 18th, a week from today, down in Port Orford. We move around with this. We'll be at the field station on Jackson Street from 1 to 4. And anybody who's interested in more of what the partners are doing, this is a great time to see all 35 agencies hopped up on steroids, talking about all that they got done. Every 3 months or so, we all get together and brag. So we would hope that somebody would be interested in that. Okay.
All right.
Fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Wonderful. Okay, now we're going to go on. We've got a hearing for a minor housing code update, amending Title 17. I don't know if Dan or okay, Dana.
You should have the script.
I do
in
have the
front of
script.
you. Perfect. So if you want to move into the hearing first,
Okay.
I'll do the staff report in there.
Okay. I now declare this public hearing open at 8:03 on September 11th. This is an official public hearing before the City Council of City Abandon for proposed changes to Title 17 of the Abandon Municipal Code related to housing. Applicable criteria related to this action are listed in the staff report, available online through the city's website and as part of tonight's meeting agenda. A copy of the minutes of this hearing will be available online and in the city offices. Is there any council member present who feels he or she may have a conflict of interest bias, or other reason to be disqualified from participation in this hearing? No. Okay, staff report. What does the staff have to report?
Thank you. So this came up at the last joint city council planning commission meeting that we had, that there were a few things in our housing codes that we needed to update. The planning commission met in multiple work sessions. We sort of started up here and funneled it down to things that we thought would pass pretty easily. Initially, we were calling this the low-hanging fruit housing code update because we wanted it to be things that weren't very controversial. So what we ultimately are proposing tonight is to increase the overall allowable size of an accessory dwelling unit. Right now, we allow them to be 650 square feet or 40% of the primary dwelling, to 900 square feet or 60% of the primary dwelling's floor area, whichever is smaller. So increasing the overall size and the percentage. And also removing the requirement to meet architectural features. We also wanted to make some changes to the R2 zone, which would reduce the minimum lot size requirements for both 2-unit and 3-unit developments. And the other one is in light industrial zones, allowing up to 4 residential units on property over 10 acres. So the planning commission recommended that you approve it as is. And please let me know if you have any questions.
We will now move into the public comment. The hearing is to be orderly and courteous. When it becomes your turn to testify, please state your name for the record. You will be given 3 minutes to share your comments. Please be mindful of your time. Is there any counselor who wishes to ask questions? Oh, sorry, they've got to speak first. So used to just reading it. Yeah, there's no, yeah. So now it's time for anybody who wishes to address the council on this issue. Somebody in the back? Yes, come on up and give your name and address.
Name is Scott Osborne, my address 55052 Allegheny Road here in Bandon. So my issue is with the ADUs, and I listened to the Zoom part of the planning committee meeting when they had that, and they had talked about this. Somebody come up and commented about it, of changing the 650 square feet to the 40% or 40% of the size of it. And you guys have the recommendation to go 900 square feet or 60% of the size of the primary dwelling. And I'm in disagreement of that, in that I don't understand the reasoning behind allowing a larger ADU because the original dwelling is larger. And maybe it's just you haven't seen an example or don't see a different way that it could play out. But in like my personal situation, I own a property in the city limits of Bandon. There is a dwelling on there that's 714 square feet. So now even with these modified requirements, that still would only allow me 428 square feet for an ADU. There is an existing 2-car garage on the property. It's been there. That I would prefer to convert into and remodel it, put it into a residence, but that's 625 square feet. It's already there. It's been there since 1980. Detached from the other dwelling. But in these situations with these requirements, that wouldn't be allowed. So I'm just bringing that as a real life situation that maybe doesn't fit into these requirements that they're putting for an ADU inside the city limits, trying to create more housing.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Anybody else wish to testify? If not, does anybody on the council want to ask Mr. Osborne a question about his comment? Staff have any comments or information to add? Oops.
I'll follow up to that briefly, because the planning commission did discuss initially having a separate path for projects that didn't quite meet these standards. Because of the state law that requires we can only put housing projects through clear and objective standards and processes and everything like that, it's kind of hard to create a process that's flexible for situations such as was mentioned by Mr. Osborne. But I think it's valid and worth looking at in the future, if not in this ordinance. I think there are plenty of examples around town where there are properties that would be perfectly eligible for an accessory dwelling unit with a big yard. Wouldn't make too much of a difference, but our current standard wouldn't match it. So we can create a type 2 process that allows for a little bit more flexibility. Am I missing anything? Do you have anything else to add?
No, it seems like something worth working on. It's just, I mean, the notion, maybe this is just a carryover from the notion that an accessory dwelling unit was the smaller thing, right? And there was some concern that you're effectively having a duplex, but that leads to the question, so what?
Right.
Depending on the lot size, so I think it's definitely worth coming back. You can certainly see a situation where if with lot coverage requirements, it might be an issue. And I don't know if that would be
No, I think we ran through all of those.
so you could do we have to come back and just wordsmith a sentence or two to have notwithstanding the above, you can have an ADU of 650 square feet.
And the other option that the planning commission discussed previously was to allow multifamily units to be separated, because right now there's a requirement for them to be attached. So allowing detached multifamily. So, I mean, I think there's options. We just are not prepared tonight to support or to
Right.
suggest any changes in here, just because I don't know how it would work out.
Okay.
But I think it's worth
So-
pursuing.
But just as a comment, I would say that this is generally an improvement to the existing code that we have.
Well, yeah.
And it is a step forward. It may not meet the requirements that every citizen needs, but there may be a way around that.
Mhm.
Okay, so we can revisit this later and do an amendment to it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think there'll be an opportunity later on to look at the housing code in more detail. This was just supposed to be the sort of fast version.
Right, to
Changes.
encourage
Yeah.
people to start
Yes.
start building. Okay,
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay,
I'm gonna
Madam Mayor?
close the hearing then.
okay.
And now the council can approve with conditions or deny the application.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to pass ordinance to second reading by roll call vote.
And we'll have to read by title only.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I think on the recommendation, the first one would be to request the city attorney read the,
Read by title only.
Yeah, because we haven't had we haven't.
Right, that's, it's.
Sorry
instead
about
of
that.
sit Down here, but we're doing it. anyway.
That's okay. This
was
is
rushing.
ordinance 1660, an ordinance making changes to Title 17 of the Bandon Municipal Code related to housing and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to pass ordinance to the second reading by roll call vote.
Second. Oh, it's been moved by Madeline, seconded by Jerry. Now we'll have a voice or a voice vote.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right, now we'll have it read by title again.
This is ordinance 1660, an ordinance making changes to Title 17 of the Bandon Municipal Code related to housing and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to adopt ordinance 1660 by roll call vote.
Second. Been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance by roll call vote. Nick?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Let the record show that ordinance 1660 has been approved. Okay, now the next item on the agenda, these are discussion items, water systems development charges. Dan, you're on.
Great. June, could you pull that PowerPoint up, please? We'll be talking about water systems development charges further if council agrees on the special meeting on the 25th, where you might be asked to adopt something depending on what comes out of tonight and what questions might be
Oops. Wrong one.
asked. I can talk about Gorse more if you'd like.
All right.
Can I have the clicker?
I hate it getting dark so early.
So this will be fairly quick. I just wanted to talk about water SDCs a little bit, talk about how we set them, what considerations go into the discussion. We'll talk about the real numbers a little bit, what numbers might be legally defensible, and then what numbers might make more sense politically for the city of Bandon. So that work. So why do we have SDCs? I can't see over my shoulder, so my back is stiff. The basic reason to have SDCs is that you want growth to pay for growth, right? It's unfair for existing ratepayers to pay for new development. You know, the counter argument, of course, is that we all at some point benefited from the investments of our forebears, right? Roads, streets, all of that stuff was paid for. And that's a counter argument about SDCs. The other counter argument is that they can, if they're excessive, they can harm affordability or stop development if they're too high. What also stops development, though, are moratoriums that happen because you simply don't have the infrastructure to accommodate the people who want to come. This happened around the city of Bend, where they did a huge expansion of the urban growth boundary. They were waiving SDCs right and left, and all of a sudden they reached a point where we've got all this land in, but we have no way, we have no money to serve it. In Bandon, you know, last year the city council regained the authority to set SDCs in accordance with state law. That's all SDCs, and in all SDCs, you know, state law has some requirements that we'll talk about in a minute. They haven't been set or increased in decades. There's no public vote required. How do you set SDCs? It's kind of a three-step process, right? Your first process is, let's have a capital plan. Let's figure out what we need to do to keep our system functioning, right? What are the major capital improvements that we need to make beyond ordinary maintenance and those sorts of things? You then look at growth projections. How many people are going to come to your city? And the growth projections under Oregon law have to be the ones that come from Portland State University. So that's kind of what you have to use. And the reality is that in some cities, Bandon hopefully might be one of them, hopefully or hopefully not. It's kind of an if you build it, they will come situation as well. Like the town of Aurora had a sewer problem. They fixed their sewer problem and built out their 20-year population forecast in 2.5 years. Nonetheless, it's the formula we have to use. You've got to use rate setting and fairness principles. And there's some real calculations and decisions that you have to make that we'll talk about later with respect to the specific water SDC. And obviously, local governments consider the economic development impacts. And they often waive SDCs for certain projects or certain types of development to incentivize them, with the caution being, if you do it too much, you can run out of money to serve the things that you're trying to make happen. What are the basics for Bandon? We adopted a water system master plan last year. We have about $35 million in capital needs over the next 20 years. Much of that is aging pipes and aging infrastructure, things that need to be replaced regardless of whether another person ever moves to Bandon or not. There are just things that are going to happen. And we'll talk in a minute about how that affects your SDCs. So, as I said, the second piece of that is you've got your capital plan, then you've got your population forecast. The population forecast that they've used for 20 years is from 3596 today, which is actually probably a little higher than we actually are today, to 4135. So 539 new people. That has a great impact upon what your SDC is, because that's the denominator of your fraction, right? If it's a $10 million charge and you have 100 people paying for it, it's a lot more than if 5,000 more people are coming. But you look at each of those capital improvements and then you allocate them. You figure out how you're going to pay for it. How much should rates pay? Because ratepayers pay. How much should SDCs pay? And how much do you think other sources are just going to have to pay? Because between the ratepayers and SDCs, you still don't have enough money to build what you might need to build. Generally, ratepayers pay for those things that are needed already today. SDCs pay for those things that are required by growth. Another component of the SDCs, though, is we've already invested stuff. We've already invested in things that were oversized to account for people that are coming. So there's a reimbursement portion of the fee as well, where new developers will pay us back for things that we've already invested in. So that's the other component of the SDC that I think makes it a little more fair. Here's an example. We have a whole model built that has the entire water system master plan, many, many pages of spreadsheets. I apologize if it's small. It's so small that I can't really read it on the sheet in front of me even. But you see here, you got total project cost of a number of items, right? And then in the columns to the right of that, you'll see rates. Is it something that's outside the 20-year window? Is there a developer contribution? Sometimes a developer might just say, look, we want this project so bad that if you're going to say no to us, we'll fund it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens in these really high growth periods when Bend was booming before the Great Recession. Developers were paying for everything. They were paying for bridges. They'd sit down in a room and just go around the table and go, this is $1 million for you, $1 million for you, and $1 million for you. That's 15,000 a lot, done. That's how developer contributions work. And then you decide how much of that is systems development charges, right? So you see here, the current model in the spreadsheet says the water treatment plant building, about 67% of that should be paid by ratepayers because it's kind of in that condition now, and 33% would be paid by SDCs. So item by item by item, you go through the entire list of capital improvements and you make those kinds of decisions. Here's the big one for Bandon. The big one for Bandon is the seasonal backup supply, right? Possibly a $10 million project, hopefully a $2.5 to $4.5 million project if the groundwater backup supply works. We've had good meetings with the state so far to date. The reservoir, not only is it more expensive initially, it has much higher operational costs because you've got to pump water in and out of this thing all year to keep it fresh and to not have temperature issues. But it is a plan that we know where the water is that's going to go into it. There's enough in the creek in the winter. It's kind of a planned out done deal, but it's horribly expensive. Without rate setting authority, Bandon cannot take advantage of the sources of funds that most cities use for this kind of stuff, which is a combination of loans and grants from the state revolving fund. Because we don't have rate setting authority, we can't enter into the kind of what they call rate covenants that they want you to enter into, that they require you to enter into. And what those covenants say is simply, Bandon, we're going to loan you $6 million for this project. You're going to agree that you're going to set your rates at whatever they need to be set for to pay us back. We can't make that promise without rate setting authority. Anyway, the groundwater supplies is going well, but we're going to base, we can base our SDC calculations on it makes sense to base them on the more expensive piece, right? So how do you allocate that fairly? One question is, how much is it going to rain next year, right? Is it something we need today? Or is it something that is entirely necessitated by growth? And I think that's a question where there would probably be a wide range of legally acceptable answers, right? Depending on how you do that, we could legally support an SDC from around $12,000 if you said it's all on the existing ratepayers, probably isn't fair, to $34,000 per new household if you said it's completely necessitated by growth. If you go 80% to growth and only 20% to the ratepayers, which may be a little more realistic about how you describe the need, it'd still be $24,000 per meter. That leads to a couple of conclusions. One is, I think doing that you could effectively kill the goose that lays the golden egg, right? If you set your SDCs too high, you're not gonna have development. So you're not gonna collect SDCs because nothing's gonna happen, or you end up waiving them later because you have projects that you need that might bring jobs and other things to your city, so you waive SDCs. So our recommendation is that Bandon set its water SDCs, toward the lower end of that, right? Because we know even if we set them at $34,000 with a $10 million project, it would be forever before we got the money. So we're going to have to get other sources of money anyway, whether that's selling city assets, getting state lottery fund allocations. There's going to be other money that comes to the table to make that project work, or the council gets rate setting authority back and we borrow the money, or issue bonds. So our recommendation is going to be that we come in toward the lower end of that. But also what we're going to propose is that we set the SDC. Right now, it's the same, other than for ADUs, it's the same systems development charge, whether you're building an 800 square foot house or an 8,000 square
Yeah,
foot house,
that's
Right.
wrong.
right? So our proposal that we're going to come back with later this month will have a graduated scale for SDCs based on the livable square footage of the home. Probably the best way to do it. Bedrooms don't work because people will cheat and say, well, that's not a bedroom, that's a den, and that's not a bedroom, that's a library, and that's not a bedroom, that's a sewing room. So we'll do it by square footage with, in our view, an average around. We can bring the council some optional figures later in the month, but it'll be around that $12,000 mid-range, lower for smaller houses, probably higher for mega mansions.
And this is for residential, but is there discussion on a different tiered system for commercial development?
Typically, Peter, it's done, Councilor Braun, it's done with what we call the equivalent dwelling unit. So a hotel room, for example, is about a third of the water use of a household. So a hotel room is a third of an what they call an EDU. There certainly is, it's possible. It's possible to do that. It would add a whole different layer of complexity, though. But because the EDU is sort of a standard calc that gives you kind of an apples to apples between a business and a residence for how much water they're actually using.
Right, okay.
So what's the water SDC now?
65?
65?
Yeah, 6546.
So we would subtract that from the 13,750 and add the 12, basically.
Yes.
Because it's not going to be on top of the 4. You're talking,
No.
You're talking.
No,
12
to-
water. Right.
Yeah, the total would be in that $12,000,
Yeah, no,
$12,000
I
range,
think that's a good
which is
option
about half
of what it should be.
of what's really legally supportable, and what it honestly could be if you want a development to pay for 80% of the new reservoir. It could be
I'd like to see.
it could be lower. If we come in with the groundwater, if the groundwater field works and the costs are lower, then there would be simply less other money that the city would have to come up with.
Because when you're talking about building here and you have a tax rate of 46 cents, I mean, the lowest utilities in the country practically, then you're getting a real deal. And if you're going to build $1 million house, you should not be quibbling over the water SDCs. It should, I think that the new development, particularly if we had implemented this a year or two ago, I mean, you drive out on the beach loop and you'll see what's happening. It's astronomical what's happening here. And most of these are not you're not us up here building houses. They are people who are coming in here with a lot of money and they're building these big houses and they need to pay their share.
Well, the thing is, too, the people that are gonna come in here and build these $1 million houses on Beach Loop, an SDC of even 34,000
right.
is nothing to them.
They're going to come here
Absolutely
regardless.
But it's still going to affect the average person that's trying to build something affordable here.
But that's what he said, that there would
That's why we
be,
do a sliding
that's why
scale.
you do a
Yes,
sliding scale.
Understand that.
In real dollars, at the end of the day, you first got to forecast what kind of stuff is going to be built in the future, how much workforce housing we're going to have.
Right.
Building has slowed down and will continue to slow down, I think, until this problem is solved, to the extent that city can annex more property. There's a lot of interest, obviously, in building in Bandon, but I don't think until this problem is fixed, the city's going to be doing a lot of annexations.
Right.
So the point being, in real dollars, the difference between a $12,000 or a $15,000 SDC for $1 million home and a $34,000 SDC for $1 million home is not going to make that much difference
No.
in a year, because there just aren't that many of them a year.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, and if the donut hole you can see what's happening in the donut hole, there's a lot more buildable property out there. And eventually, maybe these people are going to want to come into the city.
Well,
And-
especially since the gorse is gone now.
Yeah.
You can actually see the property.
I mean, it really makes people's property a lot more valuable to have
Yeah.
Gorse gone.
And that's where you end up, I think, in the situation where you get the developer contributions. In other words, if a developer bought up hundreds of acres in the donut hole, 100 acres, and was gonna do a big subdivision, and simply said, city says, no. We're not gonna annex you because we don't have enough water. It may well pay that developer to say, I'll give you $3 million.
Right,
Towards your reservoir.
right.
That happens, and
Mhm.
it's happened in the state. It happens in boom times and boom towns.
Right.
And that's the other source that may,
Well, at least we
that
can
may
use it
come
as
in.
a bargaining chip.
yeah. So this was just informational and for questions, if you have any of them. Again,
So are you gonna bring us something on the 25th or not until October meeting?
25th.
25th.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Okay.
thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is ballot measure 110. I asked to have this put on a lot of commissioners, county commissioners now are urging a repeal of this, and it just needs a groundswell of people. And I just thought that maybe we would be willing to send a letter of support in support of what Coos County is trying to do, as well as other counties throughout the state, trying to get ballot measure 110 back on the ballot to see if people really understood what they were voting for to decriminalize hard drugs. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to, well, actually, I've only found one person that would admit that they actually voted for it, but I'm sure it was like a 60-40. So I'm sure that a lot of people voted for it. They didn't understand that it wasn't going to mandate treatment. What it was going to do was just make the police no longer really willing to stop anybody who's using meth, heroin, or cocaine, because it's $100 traffic ticket. It's less than a Dewey or a high speeding ticket to be caught with methamphetamine. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. And we're the first, and so far, I guess, only state to try this ridiculous experiment. I don't know who in the state, or maybe from out of state, put this on. This was an initiative. I mean, I often hear people trying to blame the legislature for this. It was not a legislative decision. It was an initiative petition, and we're well known in Oregon for some screwy initiatives. Well, this is one of them. And it's taken a couple of years before people are saying, wait a minute, this has caused so many problems that we have got to revisit this. And that's why I'm glad to see our own county commissioners take a position. And I think I would like, I don't know if we can't vote tonight, then I would like to see it be on the October agenda so that we could vote. Is that all right? Okay.
Of course.
Discussion
It didn't
only
look like it
tonight.
was an action item, so. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a resolution clarifying utility rates after the passage of ballot measure 2208, 2209, and 2210.
Thank you. So the city referred these measures to the ballot by resolution, and attached to the resolution was a schedule, Exhibit A, schedule of rates.
Mhm.
There were errors in the schedule. Decimal point in the wrong place, a couple of words that were in the wrong place. What was sent to the voters, though, however, was clear as to what the increases would be.
Right,
This simply clarifies the record as to what the rates are going to be. It cleans up those, what are really kind of scrivener's errors. We really want to bring it in front of the council and do it by a formal resolution, though. I would note, though, that starting in August, we have applied the rates the way they should be,
right,
the way the voters approved.
okay.
And no one, I will say, no one was
Overcharged.
overcharged.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve a resolution 23-25.
Second.
Been moved by Madeline, seconded by Brian to approve resolution 23-25. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, the next one is 5.3.2, resolution 23-26, extending workers' compensation coverage to volunteers.
I will take this as well. Paula's been dealing with auditors all week, so we gave her the night off. This is something we do every year, which extends workers' comp insurance to our volunteers. The insurance is included in the adopted budget.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the attached resolution number 23-26,
Second.
extending workman's compensation coverage to volunteers for the fiscal year 23-24. Okay, Brian.
Second.
Been moved by Madeline, seconded by Brian to approve resolution 23-26. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, is there anything on the consent agenda that anybody wants to bring forward? Thought I had something, but
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, wait a second, let's see. Let's not be in such a hurry. I know
Josh,
it's not
just
late.
rush
do
her.
not use these late, oh. Oh, well, wait, what's the new? address?
I don't think I had any.
Oh, there's a new police report, and if this is an indication of the new police report, it's terrible. I mean, it's really terrible. We might as well not get it. It was so good before. It had addresses, or at least blocks where this was occurring. Now it has no date of incident. It has nothing.
Could we find out
What is
if the
happening?
police
Sure.
department had to remove that kind of data?
I
for
think they
law?
got I think it's a new system that maybe that the county implemented or something, because this is really.
That's likely the case. I'll find out.
Okay.
Okay.
And the other one I had, do large developments like Gravel Point, do they come to the council?
Not unless they're appealed, so they'll go to the planning commission for approval.
So things like the Marriott, I mean, the problems that the parking could cause and all that, and the council never has an opportunity to weigh in on any of that?
I'll take that.
The council will, on the parking, the specific parking issue for the Marriott, the council will have the opportunity to weigh in. Because they are proposing some kind of shared parking joint easement deal with the city that we need to evaluate further. We just got the latest version today.
Okay, so that will come to the council?
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't want to be, I mean,
No.
never mind, I'll say.
We'll
it later.
wait.
I will say it later. Okay,
Wait.
so I guess we've had a motion to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Unanimous. Now we have other council, mayor, staff. Oh, public comment. Oh, dear. Public comment. Anybody in the audience that wants to speak for 3 minutes, Ray?
All right.
All right.
Yes?
Say hello.
Oh, no,
Hello.
he's got-
Hi.
Nice to see you.
You're on speaker.
I think to the folks on Zoom, there's someone speaking at the podium. If you want to talk, you should send June a message.
Who's June?
I hate Zoom. All right, Darcy, I think you can go now.
We good? Are we good?
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't understand it all.
I think I know all of you, but my name is Darcy Grayheck and I live at 53701 Beach Loop on a 15-acre farm. And I run a native plant nursery. I'm going into our 4th year in October 20th. It's really been successful. Native plants are trending, which is really cool. I was also part of the GAG group at the very beginning. Liza wasn't even part of it then. The Gorse Action Group uses herbicides and I'm an organic gardener, so we separated early on as I'm really into pollinator and habitat support. So I also do restoration of gorse properties. We don't use herbicides. We have other methods that we use, hydroseeding, cardboard, mulch, different methods. So the reason I came today was because I saw some of the Gravel Point early preliminary landscape lists of native plants, most of which were not native. And I'm concerned as we get bigger development and houses. If you drive down Beach Loop, it looks a little bit like New Zealand. There's New Zealand flax, there's all these exotic things that grow on a coast somewhere, so we know they'll grow here. And as we encourage and allow that kind of trend, because it's easy and available and we know it won't die, we actually do a disservice to the shrinking habitat. The habitat has shrunk. Gorse was part of that. What's going to go in when the gorse disappears? Is it going to be non-native? Native plants give back. They don't need fertilizer. They don't need water. Lawns are stupid. When I see businesses go in Coos Bay and they've got a lawn, Taco Bell has a lawn. What a waste of water, man. So it would be nice if the city could help with making known what plants available, native plants available, can be used in a landscape And your own landscaping here is predominantly native plants. So it doesn't look like out there. I've heard people say, well, it'll look like the woods. No, it'll be aesthetically pleasing, like any good landscape. So Gravel Point, I hope they get it together. Our friend Sam Stanger is kind of in touch with their developer, and I think they're working real hard to get a good advisor so they can kind of nail that native plant claim that they want to make. And yeah, they need to come to town with some good advice. There's also a movement, you'll start to see the signs around town called Homegrown National Park. And that's a grassroots citizens movement to create more habitat and native plants in your yard or farm or whatever you live on. And it's to help pollinators. We're all charting on a national scale. And eventually this movement, we hope, will be provide more habitat. There's 65 million acres of lawn in the United States. So this is kind of a counter movement to that. So Homegrown National Park has a lot of best practices. I think a motel could even adopt their methods and maybe be, it could improve their draw to people who want to maybe stay at a sustainable hotel rather than one that's not helpful. So that's what Homegrown National Park is. They also encourage dark skies, which, as we know, the migrating birds this month are super affected by skies that are lit up. A lot of those birds fly at night. So I'm just kind of here to bring you the message that this is happening. It's a movement, and we hope you guys will be part of it. And as these developers come in, encourage them to use best practices, native plants, all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You got my timer?
That's all right. That's all right. Ray, or I don't know, maybe she has a list. Ray, come on up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Raymond Hino. I live at 2635 Cedar Loop in Bandon, also the CEO for the Southern Coos Hospital and Health Center. Here tonight to present you with a thank you letter and a donation check on behalf of the hospital. I want to read the letter. It won't take long. Dear Mayor Shamahorn, on behalf of the Board of Directors and entire staff of Southern Coos Hospital and Health Center, it's my great honor and privilege to stand before you in person tonight to express our deep appreciation and gratitude to the City of Bandon, and in particular to Avery Richards, manager of the Bandon Community Center, for coming to our rescue of the hospital during the summer. From July 18th to August 13th, for a total of 27 days, the dishwasher in our kitchen was shut down due to an extensive plumbing project underneath the flooring of the hospital. And we were able to continue providing meal service to our patients by creating a barrier between the kitchen and the dishwashing area. But the dishwasher was completely shut down. With the help of the Bandon Community Center, we at that time, we had no access to a commercial dishwashing facility. The community center came to our rescue. During those 27 days, our kitchen staff and engineering staff transported pots, pans, utensils, dishes back and forth between the hospital and the community center, sometimes several times a day. Avery Richards and her entire staff were very gracious, kind, accommodating to our staff every single day. Thankfully, on August 14th, the project was completed and we now have the full use of our kitchen. So in appreciation of everything that was done for us by the community center and the city, I'm here tonight to present a $500 donation to the community center in appreciation of everything that was done for us over the summer.
Thank you, Ray.
Who should I give this
Give
to?
it to June, please.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray.
Dan, make sure that Avery gets to see that letter.
Hi, I'm George Schwerian. I live at 1087 Carter. And a neighbor of mine, Mary Woolley, wanted to be here tonight to present a statement to you folks, but unfortunately she's had a death in the family. So she asked me to come and talk to you fine folks. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read her statement to you. And it starts out, hi, I'm Mary Willie. And I live at 2821 Lincoln Avenue Southwest. I am here as a neighbor to the new Gravel Point project, as a resident of Bandon, as a lover of, and native of Oregon. I wrote the email, which fortunately brought the attention of many local native plant experts like Darcy of Stillwater Natives. I am not a native plant expert. I am, however, a retired landscape designer and planner. As such, I was appalled by the plant list submitted by the project and then recently amended. The experts here tonight have or will expand on those specifics. My concern is the vast difference between what the developers are stating in their proposal and what they actually propose. An example of which is the plant list, both revised and original. As a retired business owner, profit is not a four-letter word to me. Destroying my and everyone's environment through disregard of the traffic, noise, views, debris, etc., an impact of 300 to 500 additional people in our back gardens is untenable. There are ways to develop the property with minimal impact and respect for our environment. As you are the city council, please do not allow this project as currently structured. It will destroy our environment and eventually we will be nothing more than another trashy coastal city who has sold out. Then their development won't be anything special either. We all lose. And that's the end of her statement. On a lighter note, in the neighborhood, we are planning a get-together potluck on the 23rd of September, and we'd like to invite anybody and everybody to come. It's going to be at the corner of Carter and Lincoln from 5 to 7. We promise not to put anybody on the spot. We're just there to visit and meet each other and have some food. We do ask that you bring your own chair and any special beverage that you might like. Thanks, folks.
Now, is Gravel Point gonna come to the council? No. So,
Unless the commission turns it down and they appeal it, then it comes to us.
so it's
Just
not,
unless it's appealed.
no, but
the
it's going to
city
go
has
to the planning commission, is
That's-
that correct?
That's correct. And it's
So maybe a lot of, because I keep seeing on Facebook urging
Yeah.
all these people to come to the council meeting, but if it isn't even going to come to the council, maybe it's, kind of a
They need to go to the
wasted
city
effort,
council
maybe go
or
to the
the
planning commission.
Planning commission.
And the planning commission meeting is scheduled for September 28th at 7 PM.
Okay.
The hearing, so. if
All
you
right,
would-
The
you
hearing
hear that, September 28th for the planning commission hearing. That would be
Great.
good. Maybe somebody could put it on Facebook too,
Yes.
because I keep seeing these things and not knowing what to say or do. Anybody else want to address the council? Oh, all right.
Hello. Hi, my name is Nancy Post. I live at 1365 Strawberry Drive in Bandon, Oregon, and I would just like to, okay, it's about Gravel Point. The city council is gonna not have any decision-making role in whether or not that huge project is coming to town?
Why not? I didn't know it either.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so the planning commission is gonna decide the fate of that entire part of town. Is that what we're
Wanna weigh in
saying?
on that, Dan?
I'm gonna weigh in. This is Dan Chandler, the city manager. Well, it's not really the case. The planning commission will make the decision. Anyone who participates in the hearing who is unhappy with the planning commission's decision has the ability to appeal that decision to the city council.
How much will
That
Okay.
includes the public.
Yes,
Okay.
anyone, but you have to participate.
You have to testify at the hearing in
Right.
order to qualify for that.
Orally, or
Okay.
in writing. You go to appear before the planning commission, then you can appeal to the city council. I do not know what the appeal fee is.
300 it used to be.
I believe it's $250 to start, but I think we bill it at actual cost.
Okay.
Okay. all
So
right.
does the part, so like if I wanted to appeal, would I pay $250 to make an appeal to the city council? Is that how that works?
We were having a little, I'm sorry, I missed your question. We were having a little off-channel discussion there about the appeal fee.
It's all right.
Okay, so that is my question. So say so I intend to participate in the discussion on the 28th, and then I want to appeal. Do I pay $250 to appeal to the city council?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. After the decision is
Okay.
made, we send out a notice to anyone who participates in the hearing with more information about how to appeal and the cost of that appeal.
Okay, so that's after the decision is made, right?
That's correct.
And the decision needs to be made within 120 days of the day the application was approved?
We exhaust all local decision-making within 120 days unless the applicant waives it.
Okay. Who else besides the planning commission is going to make decisions?
Just the planning commission unless the decision is appealed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Yes.
Excuse me. My name is Bruce Spencer, 1349 Strawberry Drive. May I ask who is on the planning commission?
On our website.
Sure, there's a roster on the city's website.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can look that up. How many people are on the planning commission?
7.
7, okay. Thank you.
There was somebody on
Okay.
Zoom that started to talk too.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's you.
Yes.
Hello?
We're here.
Oh, thank you. My name's Don Suva. I live at 1357 Strawberry in Bandon. And my only questions concern the notice of the public hearing. I've received it in the mail today because I'm within 250 feet of the gravel point project. So it seems like that's a huge project. It seems like that's going to have an effect on people way beyond 250 feet from the project. I mean, you could even say it's going to have an effect on the entire city of Bandon. So it seems like more written notice should go out. And the second thing I wanted to say is that it's only 2.5 weeks until the hearing. Again, for such a large project that means so much to so many people, it seems like there should be a little more time for public comment. And thank you. That's all I have to say.
No.
Okay. Next. Did you wish to come up?
Catherine Mills. I live at 2832
Give
Lincoln.
your name a louder.
Oh, Catherine Mills, 2832 Lincoln Avenue. Is the decision going to be made by the planning commission on the 28th of September?
Possibly, they can make a decision that day or they can continue the hearing if they want more information.
Okay. I totally the traffic is going to be unbelievable on the roads. I mean, why can't they, if this does have to go through, why can't you make them do a road from Edna into it or the 20th Street into it? I mean, it's just unbelievable, the traffic that's going to come down Lincoln, all the construction and everything.
I encourage you to bring your public comment to the planning commission meeting since they're the decision.
I plan to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Hello?
Hello?
My name is Leslie Suva, 1357 Strawberry Drive. I understand you're not making any decision or recommendation on Gravel Point. My request is for a moratorium on the project until the voting and tax-paying population of Bandon is fully informed and can weigh in on who wants this project. And I don't know who to ask about that.
Okay.
And I have more to say, but I'll say it to the planning commission. Thank you.
That would be good. Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the council? Anybody else?
Going.
All right, public comment is over. Now we're gonna have council mayor staff remarks. Jane, Dana. Shayla,
I would just like to stress that any members of the public who wanted to comment on the gravel forward project, be sure and attend the planning commission meeting so that your voice does get into the record, because it will need to be spoken at that meeting in order for it to be an appealable issue.
amen. Dan?
Just a quick update. This is hot off the presses on the library allocation formula.
Yeah.
The current proposal is a substantial improvement. We talked earlier about how the Coosby and North Bend libraries each get a base that is unrelated to their actual service levels. That has now gone away. So there will be, the plan currently is a 4-year transition to a 100% service-based model. First of all, kudos to Christine Kingsbury, our library director, who's just done an outstanding and professional and courteous job bringing this, and a persistent job bringing this to the attention of the right folks. It's moving the right direction. What we would need if the situation doesn't improve, in terms of the transition plan, it's a 4-year transition, would be some additional budget, possibly from the Library Memorial Fund over the next 4 years, so that we can keep staffing levels up, because future funding will come from the amount of services provided. And if you don't have the staff to provide the services, so they may, if it doesn't get better, and Christine will continue to advocate for our interests. But as it is, they will need some more money over the next 4 years to keep staffing levels up, because 4 years then from that point forward, it's going to be all, which it should have been all along, but based completely on staffing levels.
Sure.
But that would get us from around 400 and something this year to 640,000 a year in 4 years from the library district.
Yeah,
So it's really,
yeah.
it's a great improvement. We would like it to happen faster.
Yes.
But we're so far ahead of where we were 4 months ago.
That's great.
It's good.
That's
news.
great news. Thank you.
Dan or
Brian?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the Cranberry Festival. I think they did a terrific job. I heard it was very successful. But as an Old Town merchant,
Mm-hmm.
we got the short end of the stick. I mean, the traffic was way down. We weren't very busy. I mean, maybe Chris was, but I sure wasn't. But I think that they could, have a couple of events down in Old Town
I agree.
to kind of step things up a little bit. That's all I've got.
Jer,
Well, regarding the.
Pull your microphone
pull your
down.
microphone down.
It is on.
No, pull it down.
Well, for years, everybody asked me what the city council does regarding these buildings. And I said, all we do is when they appeal to us. And I always wondered what we were doing up here, when the building's something we don't like. So that's I agree with.
We have
all
to
of
go
you.
to the planning commission hearing.
I've
but then
done
we
that.
can't
We were not
testify.
allowed to do that.
I
yes.
know.
So good luck, folks.
Cranberry Festival was good. I liked it. We had a lot of fun. I liked the way they put the vendors and the food trucks this year, got us out of the dirt and the dust. The car show was in a good area, and they were on the grass, well, dead grass, but at least it was a grass, so they didn't have a bunch of dirt or dust to deal with. I still would like to see it to go back downtown. I'm sorry, I guess I'm old fashioned, but it just seems like the merchants are getting left out, Old Town's getting left out, our restaurants are getting left out. And that's a 2-day cycle of them being left out of everything. And that's like the last big weekend of the whole year. Well, until Christmas anyway. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I have a question. Did we ever, before our ordinances were changed to type 1, type 2, and all the things that we went through, before Fred was gone, so 2 or 3 years ago, was that when the change was made that have big projects like this ever come to the city council?
No.
I guess we just haven't had that many big projects, so. Okay, well,
Now we're on the map.
that answers my question. Not well, but and not happily, but it answers my question. Okay. But I agree with the, I think the Cranberry Festival was successful and I appreciate all the work that they went into, but I still think that we need to have part of it, at least part of it down in Old Town. I think there needs to be a separation, maybe, I don't know, maybe the car show, something could be downtown, but that's just my opinion. But it was nice. The weather was good. Well, outside with the fog, but without the fog, there was no wind. So that was a good thing. Peter?
I have nothing other than to thank, once again, thank Bill Smith for all of his hard work for our community. And if you get a chance and you see him on the street, thank him personally.
And thank Liza for a wonderful presentation because we did not realize
What was going on?
we did not realize all this work that was going on. And I mean, there has been a tremendous, and she called me one day and she was very upset to learn that Dan was retiring. And she said, well, he's a huge cog in this machinery. And so then after she talked to me for a half an hour, she said, I'd really like to make a presentation to the council. And I agreed that we all needed to see
Yeah.
what has been going on, and it's pretty impressive.
Believe it or not, people, we're left out of a lot of stuff. Not everybody comes to us and tells us everything that's going on. So we really appreciate like Liza's presentation, and everything else, because last time Liza was here, she had a mask on. So we know how long ago that was. So.
Josh?
My turn now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Josh.
I share the same sentiment about Cranberry. While it was a better layout this year than last year, I would like to see it in downtown as well. I walked down to downtown after going to the Cranberry and it was dead. It was dead. Everybody was just up at the park, so I'd like to see it in Old Town too.
I'd like to talk to Margaret. I see her hands up there on the screen. I did
Where's
notice
Margaret?
there's been a lot of begging on Facebook for volunteers to help out, so maybe if there were more volunteers, they could have more stuff in Old Town. I don't
Could
know.
be.
Can we put Margaret on to see what her?
Margaret, you're on the spot.
Go ahead, Margaret.
I was not going to comment tonight because I knew there was some unhappiness, and probably that's almost too strong of a word. We made a conscious effort to go to Old Town. I was downtown 5 times Saturday, and there was 1 or 2 parking spaces every time I swung through town. So I'm not sure where, and we're certainly open to suggestions, but our space in Old Town becomes very limited to handle the crowds.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead, Margaret.
Yeah. And part of it is the safety issue. As we all know, putting that many people into Old Town is strenuous, very strenuous. The other part is you notice that 2 of our 3 nighttime facilities closed down at 10 that night because they were afraid of safety and alcohol all kind of mixing into one. The last time we had a large festival in Old Town, we had a pretty catastrophic incident that evening. And so alcohol becomes an issue to a point, and it's very hard with very few volunteers to manage that into the evening. So there's so many aspects that people don't actually really think about. And we are definitely, looking at however we can do it. I had a gentleman in my office today as we talked about we did have the Prancing Pet Parade downtown, and it was super successful. Avery does a great job with that. It's her 2nd year at it. And so we're certainly open to doing more things downtown. We would love to have music on the boardwalk, but again, wind is an issue. So it is a very much of a challenge. I mean, wherever we have it, it's a challenge. We were very lucky this year with the weather. And we feel like we brought a ton of people to Bandon. Old Town was super busy today. Again, Saturday and Sunday, when I drove around, every restaurant on 1st Street and 2nd Street had lines out the door. So there were people in Old Town, a lot of people in Old Town, and we saw them go down. People Mary made a great comment. Her family from Portland came. They hung out at the festival for a while and then went downtown to go shopping. So we've got to figure out how to get them to spend money in Old Town. And I think that's a challenge that all of us need to work on. And I'm ready to lead the charge on that. So thanks for your compliments. Appreciate that very much. And we're always working to better Bandon.
Thank you, Margaret. I just have one question. We had 7 people here for a Dewey task force. Does anyone know if anyone was arrested? Do you know anything about it?
No.
Okay. I guess we haven't heard, so I guess that's the meeting's adjourned. We don't have an executive session, right?
No.
The meeting's adjourned.
good.
Thank you, people, for sitting through this. Oh, you want to go? Yeah.
What I thought, I didn't want to say it in case I knew it was true.